Hello friend, welcome to today's video. My name is Kendall, and I cannot believe I am making this video right now. I have Witten's Christmas bear with me to keep me company while we make this video today. So this is going to be the pregnancy and birth story of my son Witten, who was stillborn on August 16th, 2019. And yeah, I'm gonna do two parts of his story. So this first video is going to be about his pregnancy and birth story. And then the second part will be about what happens after that, the funeral and postpartum after a full-term stillbirth. So let's get into it. Like I said, my name is Kendall. I am married to my high school sweetheart, Scotty, and we have a now 6-year-old son, Waylon. So back in May of 2018, we were trying for baby number 2, and we got pregnant, and then we miscarried in May of 2018 at about 10.5 weeks. It was a missed miscarriage. And it was devastating. And then, yeah, I'll have to make a whole video about that later. But then we started trying again for 6 months. And in December 2018, we got pregnant again. And it's crazy because the baby we miscarried, its due date was December 14th of 2018, and we found out we were pregnant with Witten on December 15th. So it was like one pregnancy ended and a whole new pregnancy began. So I went to the store and got some first response tests. And look, you can see that. It's positive. I'm so happy right now. I'm beyond shocked right now. Like, I cannot believe this is the best Christmas gift I have ever gotten. Oh, I'm just so happy and excited. Okay, I just wanted to film this video for this little being. You're right here inside of mommy right now, and mommy and daddy love you so much, and we can't wait to meet you. Mommy looks crazy. Get used to it. There you are. You're right there. I love you so much. I'm so excited. I felt so good about this pregnancy. With my miscarriage, I just knew the entire time that we were gonna miscarry. My intuition told me that that pregnancy wasn't gonna last. But with Witten, I was so excited. I knew that this was gonna be it. Flash forward to January of 2019, we had our first ultrasound at like 6 weeks and got to see like the tiniest little bean. And then had another ultrasound at about 10.5 weeks where we really got to see him and see his heartbeat.
See the calisthenics going on inside? You see your baby move? Here, and I don't know if I can get to all of it.
It's crazy.
It looks like a little
That's crazy.
mouse looking out of a knot hole in a... Cool.
And that's when we decided to tell all of our family at about 10.5 to 12 weeks. And then on Valentine's Day, on February 14th, we did the whole social media post and shared with the world that baby number 2 was coming. And yeah, we shared a lot about our miscarriage, so everyone was, really excited that we were pregnant again. And I really wanted a girl, but we found out that it was going to be another boy. And after the initial shock, I was so excited. Our older son, Waylon, was so excited to be having a baby brother. Witten's pregnancy was textbook normal. He was incredibly active, so active, way more active than Waylon was. Like, he was up all night and he had really strong kicks and he loved to listen to music and dance in the car with me. We had really great moments in the car together, and that was probably one of my favorite activities we did together. So it was really a great pregnancy. About halfway through, I started to swell a lot, and I started kind of focusing on that and my blood pressure. But my doctor didn't say anything about it, so he wasn't too concerned, so I wasn't concerned at first. And then at around 35 weeks is when I started to get a little nervous because the swelling was really, really bad and my blood pressure was getting pretty high. To my doctor, it wasn't dangerously high, which is very frustrating, but I don't know, it just was high for me. So I would take my huge pregnant butt to the grocery store and I would test my blood pressure twice a day and log it so that I could come to my next appointment and be like, look at these numbers. It's not going down. But he continued to say that it was fine, and I went against my better judgment. I went against my intuition and just decided to trust my doctor. He was the same doctor that delivered Waylon, and Waylon's pregnancy wasn't any different from Witten's. So I just blindly trusted him. My last appointment at 38 weeks and 4 days, we graduated per se, and everything was looking great. Witten's heartbeat was great. He was perfect size. He was going to be a big boy, and we knew it, and everything was just, I mean, literally perfect. There was like no concern. Blood pressure was it was staying the same high, but it didn't get any higher, and there was never any protein or anything like that in my urine or anything, so my doctor was like literally just not concerned about anything. And also to note, he never gave me a gestational diabetes test, so there's a lot of, I guess we'll talk about that in a different video. But yeah, so at that appointment, everything looked great, and he was like, you know what, I don't need to see you again. I had a C-section with Waylon, an emergency C-section, so we had already decided that a C-section was where we were gonna go. And so he was like, we already planned the C-section for August 21st, which was in 5 days. So he was like, here, I'll give you the paperwork, you've graduated, and we'll see you at your C-section. So we left that appointment feeling really great. And I remember telling my husband when we got in the car, I was like, we graduated, we did it. But I had this like weird feeling in the back of my mind when they said that. I was kind of like, in my head, I was like, oh, Kendall, don't jinx it, don't jinx it. But yeah, we went home that night. I wasn't feeling well, like I was just, tired. I was heavily pregnant. Witten was huge. And so my mother-in-law picked up Waylon to spend the night at her house, and we were just gonna relax. We ordered pizza, which was one of my favorite foods, and I baked cookies, another one of my other favorite foods, and just laid on the couch. I remember Witten being very active, and the last time I felt him move that I can remember was when I was eating, I don't know if I was eating the pizza or the cookies, but I had my plate on my belly, and I just remember him like kicking it, and I was like, oh, he's kicking the plate. And then at about between 8 or 9 p.m. I went to bed, and right before I went to bed, I walked into the bathroom, and I felt and heard this like really weird sound in my belly. It felt like it split in half. I don't know. It wasn't painful, but it just was kind of like shocked me. It was just like a really weird feeling. And I remember looking at myself in the mirror, like turning my head, looking at myself in the mirror and just being like, what was that? Like really kind of freaked out. But I'm a very anxious person and a very intuitive person. So I'm always constantly fighting with myself of, is this my intuition? Is this my anxiety? And I just remember telling myself, we just had the appointment like 4 hours ago, because his appointment was in the evening. He was fine. Heartbeat was there. He's been kicking all night. everything's fine. So I got into bed and was asleep before 9. Now, my husband at the time would have to wake up at 3 a.m. to go to work. So Witten usually would wake up at 3 a.m. too and kick for daddy and just, be like, oh, we're awake for a minute, and then he'd go back to bed. Well, I remember waking up in the middle of the night to go to the restroom around 3 a.m. and he wasn't moving. And I remember I went to the restroom, I got back in bed and he wasn't moving, and I was kind of like, okay, buddy, what's going on? You're not moving. But then I was like, you know what, Kendall, everything's fine. He's probably just sleeping. It's nighttime. Maybe he's just sleeping today. He's not ready to get up yet. So I just pushed it back of my head and went back to sleep. And then I woke up the next morning around 6:30. No, before that. And I was cleaning my house because my dad was coming over that day to fix up some stuff before the baby came. And so I wanted the house to look nice. And I just remember my belly feeling really weird, and looking back, I'm guessing that's what like true Braxton Hicks contractions, or maybe even early labor contractions, feel like. My belly was super tight and hard, and it just felt weird, and he wasn't moving. I have to be at work by 7 a.m. So on my way to work, I grabbed, I think it was a juice or something out of my fridge. I think it was a juice, and I was like, I'll drink this and he'll wake up on my way to work. He's probably just still sleeping. So I drink it, I get to work, and I'm busy. Friday's kind of a busy day for me at work. I gotta get paychecks out and everything like that. So I'm busy doing that, but I can feel myself being like really agitated. And the cleaning ladies who clean our office on Fridays were there, and they're such sweet ladies, and they were talking to me about the baby like they'd done every other time they came. But this time, when they were talking about him, like when is he coming and the C-section and all, I was getting really agitated with them and just kind of like short and just not myself, which I, looking back was kind of weird. Like maybe like my body just kind of knew like, hey, something's up and we don't want to talk about this right now. And then they left around like 8:30, and that's when I like had a moment of quiet, and I was like, wait a second. I don't think I've felt the baby move this morning. Like, I know for sure I haven't felt him move. So then I started drinking water, and I started shaking my belly. It was still having those weird sensations. And those weird sensations, I think, is what I thought was him moving. So that's what I thought. But I wanted to really feel him move in his usual kicks, And so I started drinking water. And then about 30 minutes later, I was like, okay, he really hasn't moved yet. Like, I have not felt him move. Like, I was really starting to pay attention to my body and feel if I could feel him. And I was like, he has not moved. I'm shaking my belly. I'm talking to him. I'm rubbing it. All the things that would usually get him to move. And he was not moving. So then I snuck into my coworker's fridge and I got out a Coke. And I was like, this has to wake him up. It's so sugary and all those things. And that was around like probably 9:30. And so I drank it, some of it, like not all of it. And I think about 15 minutes later, I'm like, okay, he's not moving. Like he's not waking up. And so I started to kind of freak out. And I remember I texted my husband and I was like, I haven't felt the baby move all morning, or I can't get him to move or something like that. He texted me back and he was like, well then go see your doctor, like go in. And I read that text and I was like, you know what? I'm gonna do that. I just need peace of mind. I need to hear his heartbeat. So I called my husband as soon as I got in the car, and I couldn't even talk because I was really starting to realize then what I was doing. And he was just kind of like, do you want me to go with you, meet you at the doctor? And I was just like, I couldn't answer him. I think he knew from me not being able to answer him that he was like, okay, I'm coming. And my husband actually was supposed to be at work, but he was already on maternity leave. And then he was supposed to be at his second job that morning, but that got canceled or pushed or something. I can't remember. So the fact that he was able to meet me at the doctor, like looking back, is amazing. Just the way how that worked out. So on the way to the doctor, it's like a 10-minute drive. I was in tears. I tried to pray a little bit. I tried to sing to Witten to let him know that I loved him. And I just tried to have him feel my love. and just hope and hope and hope that he was okay. And he didn't move the entire time. And so we got to the doctor, and I see my husband, and we walk in together, and the nurse was like, Kendall, what are you doing here? Like, we just saw you yesterday. And I was just like, we need to find his heartbeat. And so the other nurse took me back, and she laid me down. And usually with every single one of my other appointments, you could find his heartbeat as soon as she put the Doppler on him. He was so, like, you know, we were that far along, you know, 38 weeks and 5 days at this point. But as soon as it took her more than a minute to find his heartbeat, I knew something was wrong. She was moving it around and starting to push on my belly, starting to like really dig in there, trying to find his heartbeat all over. And she was the one who found his heartbeat the day before. So she was like, I remember him being right in this part of your belly. Like, why can't we find it? And she's kind of quiet. And as soon as we had walked into the room, my husband had sat down because he's thinking in his head, like, this woman's crazy. We're gonna hear the heartbeat, everything's gonna be fine. But as soon as it took her a minute, because he had been at every single one of Witten's appointments with me, he stood up and came by me because he could feel, okay, something is wrong. So I don't really know how long it took her to come to the conclusion that she couldn't find it, but it felt like forever, and it was so painful. She was pressing on my belly so hard. She was listening to my heartbeat because she would catch mine, hoping that it was his. And I laid there, and I just remember staring up at those ceiling tiles for like a really long time. That's just what I remember, is staring at the ceiling tiles, because I just knew that something was really wrong. And then eventually, I don't know how long it was, my doctor came in and he was like, okay, we need to do an ultrasound. So I had to go into a different room, and he was like, go ahead and, undress just in case, I need to check you and stuff like that. So this is the point where I start to freak out. And I, just from after having a miscarriage, when you've experienced loss and being told that your baby's not there on an ultrasound, you kind of don't like ultrasound machines anymore. So I had gained back some of the trust with an ultrasound machine after my miscarriage, after seeing a living baby for a few months, but I did not want him to turn that ultrasound machine on. I was like taking off my pants, and I'm literally sitting there butt naked, sobbing. Like, I started to freak out. I was like screaming. I was like, I don't want to do this. I don't want to do this. I can't do this. I can't do this. I don't want to do this. I don't want it to be over yet. And my husband had to like really calm me down. He was like, it's okay. Everything's going to be okay. And if it's not, we're going to get through this. And he had to really like calm me down for me to be able to lay down and for him to turn the machine on. And as soon as he turned it on and put it on my belly, just like with one quick swipe, we could see his heart, and it wasn't moving anymore. It was so still. And God, that moment just really, really sucks. I just remember, like, I don't even know what I did. Just letting out like a cry, a scream, a roar, I don't know. And he said the S word, stillbirth. And I was like, no, don't say that. Don't say that. I don't want this. And I remember like just kind of screaming, like, I can't do this. I can't do this again. Because with our miscarriage, we already had to tell Waylon that his sibling went to heaven. And then I was like, I can't tell Waylon. What are we going to tell Waylon? How are we going to tell? Like, that was my first concern, was my other son. How I'm going to tell him that his brother isn't coming home anymore like we had expected. Literally 5 days before his C-section. So after that, after my initial like scream, like before I could even sit up, I went into complete shock, like complete numbness. Like something just came over me, and I became like stone cold, like no emotion, just no feeling. Like I felt like I was just watching everybody around me. I wasn't in my body anymore. And he said that we could either go home, take some time, up to like, I don't even know, a few days, or we could go right that day and go do the C-section. And I said, we wanted to do it that day. That's when my husband started calling family. I called my dad, and because I couldn't get a hold of my mom, and had to tell him, and he had to call my mom and tell her while she was in the middle of a store. And she rushed to the doctor just to meet us there. And then my husband called, everyone else. And that was really hard, having to like tell people that that he died. Was just, it's like. So then my mom got to the doctor's office, and still at this point, like, I am in a different world. I'm not in this world with everybody else anymore. And I think it was a way for my body to protect itself by just like not being there. Because I mean, losing your child is like a pain that it's really hard to live with and live. So I walked out of the office to the nursing station, or to the receptionist, and I'm smiling because I literally don't know what to, like, I'm just like, this is not my life. This isn't happening. So I'm like, okay, yeah, we're going to go to the C-section. Like, I'm just like not doing well. My husband is sobbing. We've been together for 13 years, and this is the first time I've ever seen him cry before. My mom's crying, and we get the papers that we need to take to the C-section or whatever. We get, the time that it's going to be and all that stuff. And we walk out of the office, and all of us had brought our own car. So my mom was like, do you want me to drive you? Do you want me to drive your car? You ride with Scotty? And at first I was like, well, we're going to need the car seat. And it was like a weird realization that never mind, we're not gonna need the car seat because he's not coming home anymore. So I was like, no, it's fine. We literally live 2 minutes away from my doctor. So I was like, I'll just drive the car home, so everyone's car's, at my house and not here. And then we'll all ride together to the hospital. So we get back to my house. My dad meets us there. My mother and father-in-law, my husband's parents meet us there. And my sister-in-law was gonna go pick up Waylon from school. And at this point, we're trying to pack a hospital bag, because the hospital bag I packed was for us to give birth to a living baby. So now we have to figure out what we're gonna need. And I wasn't gonna bring anything for Witten, but I got this special swaddle made for him with his name on it and rainbows on it that I designed myself, because he was our rainbow baby. And at first I wasn't gonna bring it, but I was like, no, if he's gonna wear anything, I want him to wear this. And then as I'm packing clothes, the first thing we did when we got home is we came into this room right here, this room, because we had the nursery all set up. It's not set up now. We had it all set up, and that was the first thing we did, is we came into his room, and just mostly my husband sobbed, because like I said, I'm still in shock at this point. We sat in this room for a bit, and I was running around the house packing clothes and what we needed. And then my husband, out of nowhere, just starts shouting about the fact, like, what are we gonna do with him? Like, are we gonna cremate? Are we gonna bury him? Like, what are we gonna do? We don't have all of those things. Like, we don't have a plot. And it was just like, we've never thought about that stuff before. Like, what we would want for our child, let alone what we would want for each other or myself. So he started screaming and freaking out about that. And so we made that decision right then, so that my mother-in-law could start calling around funeral homes and setting up the funeral and all that. And we decided that we wanted him to be buried in the same cemetery as my grandfather, who Witten is actually named after, his middle name. So we decided that. And then my sister-in-law brought home Waylon. And we sat in the nursery in here. and we told him that his brother wasn't going to come home anymore. And he didn't understand it. He was 5. He was about to turn 5 at this time. And he didn't understand. He was like, but his crib, his bed is right here. This is where he sleeps. It's right here. And we're like, yeah, he's not coming to that anymore. And he's a kid, so he was more worried. I think my sister-in-law promised that she's gonna go buy him Legos. So he was more like, okay, he's not coming home. Let's go buy Legos now. So she took him to go pick up my niece and nephew and to take him to Target and just like have some fun with him while we started the process at the hospital. So my husband and I drove in one car and everyone else followed us to the hospital. And we got checked in, and then we met our nurse, Lisa. I love her. She was amazing. She took us back to our room and she started to explain the process to her, and she was just so kind and empathetic and gentle with us, and she was just kind of like, whatever you feel is you feel, whatever you want to do, just telling us all these things. And at that point, a ton of our family started to meet us at the hospital to come hang out with us. Since I had eaten like a piece of bread at like 7 in the morning, we had to wait to have the C-section. So it was a few hours of just sitting there in the hospital, and a ton of family came. And then it was time for the C-section. So we went back into the room, and the staff was absolutely amazing and impeccable. They kept me calm, and the anesthesiologist was amazing. He sat like right there at my head and was just like, okay, they're cutting you, like, just explaining what's going on. Baby will come soon. You may feel this. And he was just so sweet. And it was a much better experience C-section wise this time around than it was with Waylon. And then Witten was born. At 4:54 p.m. on August 16th, 2019. And it was quiet. It was quiet. I remember seeing him for the first time, kind of like at the corner. The nurse, went to go kind of clean him off and wrap him up in his swaddle that we brought. And I just remember seeing him, and I wasn't expecting him to be so flimsy, I guess, and that was just kind of like you still hope and hope and hope that he's gonna come out crying and alive. And then when she grabbed him and I saw him, and there's no control of his legs or his arms, it was like it really sunk in that like he was gone. And she gave him to my husband, and I fell madly in love with him even more. Like it was that love that they talk about, that just instant fell in love with him. He was the most beautiful baby I've ever seen. But it was torture because he was already gone. And he looked so grumpy because he was a big boy. He was 8 pounds, 13 ounces. I think it was 21.5 inches long. And he had been squished a little bit, so he looked grumpy, but he looked so at peace. It was a really peaceful time. The nurse took a ton of pictures, and we just loved on him. And then it was time for us to go back to the room, and all of our family was still there, and they all got to come and meet him. We just wanted him to be surrounded by so much love and to be held the entire time. And so everyone came to meet him and take pictures, and it was really beautiful to spend that time with him. Waylon didn't really want to hold him or anything. He was scared of the color of his lips, because stillborn babies do have red lips a lot of times, or purple lips. So he was kind of a little scared of him, but that was okay. We didn't, you know, we just let him be a kid. We took some pictures, and then a few hours later, everyone started to leave and go home, and Waylon was supposed to go home with my parents, but he started to really freak out about leaving us, and we just knew that that wasn't the right decision, that we'll just keep him with us just for the night. We knew he was probably scared and not understanding what's going on, so we let him stay with us. And since we were in the maternity ward, they were going to take us to a different floor farther away from the babies, so that we wouldn't have to hear the other babies throughout the night. So our night nurse came in, and she was amazing too. She had lost her son Hank, so she knew exactly how we felt and what we were going through, and she just was so amazing. And then it was time to give Witten back to her, and we had a cuddle cot, thankfully, which is like a cold bassinet that preserves the baby's body. We had that in our room and at our hospital, which is amazing because some people don't get that. But my husband and I was still in shock, and it was just really, it was torture just holding him and hoping that he's going to open his eyes and he's going to breathe or cry. And at some point we were just like, okay, we need to just you know, start the next chapter. Looking back, I would have never have given him back up. I would have held him longer and done so many other things. But at the moment in time, we made the best decision that we could with the information that we had. And I remember saying our goodbyes, and Waylon was just like, oh, I'm not gonna be a brother anymore. And so we just had to kind of like reassure him that he still was a brother. His brother was just, you know, in heaven now. And we gave Witten back to the nurse, and they moved us to a different room. And we, started our chapter, our new life as a family of 4 with 1 missing, so. Whew. Oh, I didn't cry as much as I thought I would, so yeah, that is the stillbirth story of our son Witten, who was stillborn at 38 weeks and 5 days, and from a completely healthy pregnancy. There was absolutely nothing wrong with my placenta, with the cord, with him, from what we could see. His heart stopped beating. That's the only explanation we have, even a year later. We decided not to do the autopsy because at the time our doctor told us that we probably wouldn't find answers, and we wanted to protect him as much as possible, and the thought of having someone cutting him open, we weren't okay with that, especially if we weren't going to find answers. We just wanted to protect him, and so we didn't do an autopsy. So at this point it's completely undetermined. And so in future videos I'll talk more about that and kind of more answers we found out in the last year and just all kinds of future things. But that is his story, and I thank you so much for listening to our son's story. I hope that by telling his story we can raise awareness that stillbirth is majorly preventable. A majority of stillbirths are preventable. Always trust your intuition as a mother, as a parent, and always get a second opinion if you believe that you need one. And if you have lost, just like we have, I'm here for you, and I hope my future videos on grief and just living with this heartache will help you feel loved and heard and not alone, because you're not alone. So in the next video I'll talk about postpartum, the funeral, and just all the things that happen after a stillbirth, and that is it. So thank you. Make sure to follow me on Instagram at Kindle Pimentel. That's where I hang out a lot. Let's be friends, let's chat, and let's lean on each other. Let's carry our pain together. So bye guys.